Good morning, world. Make sure I put that cursor over there so I don't mistakenly click on something I don't want to. Hope we all had a great week this week. Weather's been treating you well. Been a busy week for me. Just don't seem to have enough time in the day to get everything done. But that's life, isn't it? Good morning again, Pippadot. I hope you had a great week. How's my day so far? Been pretty hectic, but ain't done yet. Good morning, Mike Stevens, Ala Akbar, to you as well, Mike. I'm glad you could be here all the way from South Carolina. Right? South Carolina? One of the Carolinas, I believe. Yeah, but I was saying it just doesn't seem to be enough hours in the day right now to get everything done. But such is life. You try to find the most, get the most done in what time you have, and do the best you can. Good morning, Amelia. Kaiora. Good morning, Will, and chat room. Good to see you. It's good to see you too. Well, Mike Stevens is from New Jersey. I thought you're from the Carolinas. I'm probably confusing you with someone else who was in the chat. Well, pretty regularly, I mean, not right now, but good morning, Gayla. And welcome to this morning's Page 2 News. I hope you had a great week. The same with everybody else who is maybe listening and has not jumped into the chat and said hello this morning. I hope you all had a terrific week. Hope the weather has been treating you well. And you're all in good health. My health is perfectly good. Just don't have enough hours in the day, it seems like sometimes, to get everything done. But do the best I can. Good morning, Francie. Welcome to this morning's Page 2 News. Hope you had a terrific week. I'm glad everyone could be here with us this morning. Give it another minute here, and then we're going to get this going. This morning's topic for Page 2 News is a little bit different. Something I've never done before. Well, hey, hope you enjoy it, though. It's kind of off topic, as some people would say, but I still find it, interesting. Gemma, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, Gemma. I was obsessed with swan boat crash verdict this week. The swan boat. Is that one of those duck boats? I'm sorry, Mike, but I haven't been following that. The swan boat crash. Probably should have, though. It is 5 a.m. Sunday morning here, listening along while making coffee. All right, Amelia. I hope you had a terrific week. $5 a.m. the next day. Got to be over the international date line, obviously. All right, let's get this going this morning. This is the 247th episode of Page 2 News. 247. Quick shout out to everyone, those who supported the content last week from either a super chat, super thanks, PayPal, or purchased merchandise. Pippin Dot, Devin, and Sago, who supported the content last week. Thank you very much. It definitely helps to keep this content alive and being able to make this content, because regardless of what some people think, it's not free and it's not easy to make. Good morning, Cement Shoes. Welcome to page 2 news and Kid to Q. Good morning to you as well. Now for something completely different. Again, this is not crime related, but I find it interesting, and I've had this done for a while, and I was just like, I'm gonna use it so I can just get it out of my file of content that I've already put together. All of it, what you're about to see, is probably about 2 months of old. I don't know if there's any newer updates since then, but this is, I came across this at the end of December, the 1st of January, and put it all together. And I was just like, I think it's interesting. And I hope you find it interesting as well. 15 things you didn't know, most likely didn't know about true crime and those who make content around it, is today's subject matter. 15 things you probably didn't know. Murder is the most common crime covered in true crime content over any other. With almost 95% of all reporting covering murder, the least covered is white collar theft, with just 1.2% coverage. Now we're talking about true crime genre as a whole. Books, podcasts, movies, television, YouTube, and that goes for TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Only 1.2% of any of it covers white collar theft, but 95% of it is of true crime content covers murder. 68% of all content creators on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok that cover true crime just read you the news story someone else wrote word for word, and then they may mix in their own commentary on top of that, but they are using someone else's work. If you want to know additionally how many of them actually give a reference, or say that, look, this is where I got that story from, or this is whose work I'm reporting on and reading it to you word for word, it's less than a half of a total percent. Less than half of a total percent will give any credit to whose work they are repeating to you word for word. Talk about not having an original thought. 13. Content about serial killers is the most popular subgenre over any other, with 79.5% of all in the subgenre of true crime reporting is about serial killers. 79.5%. Kidnappings, hostages, content only accounts for 7% of all true crime content on YouTube between the years of 2010 and 2022. Yes, that's 12 years. Only 7% has anything to do with kidnappings or hostages. This does not include people, who have abducted children, and that is their entire thing about missing children, or missing, anyone under the age of 17. When it comes to kidnapping, these are kidnappings of adults and hostages of adults. Is only 7% of all content in that 12-year period. 11. True crime podcasts are the fastest growing area of true crime content on the internet. And this does not count podcasts that you may find on YouTube. This is podcasts that might be on your streaming apps, your SoundClouds and other sites that do podcast streaming. YouTube in their podcast area is only, about a year and a half, almost 2 years old, and is a very small fraction, because YouTube is a video, visual, and audio in driven content platform, where a lot of these podcasts, that were original, and a lot of their back catalog have no video aspect of it. People want to watch, even if they're just sitting there and they're watching a video of two people with microphones talking, they want to see that visual part of it on YouTube. And that is a very good reason why the 200 plus episodes of the Taco podcast that me and my wife originally did are not on the Taco Podcast YouTube channel, even though it's called the Taco Podcast. But those back catalog of episodes were only on SoundCloud. They should still be on SoundCloud, but we took a lot of it down because of the dispute we had with SoundCloud itself. But there's no video to it. It's just us talking, because it was meant as an audio only, format. 10. 77% of viewers of true crime content on YouTube is consumed by women within the first 24 hours of its release. What does that even mean, you might ask? Of the 77% of all new content, so content is released by a creator out on the platform, 77% of it is watched within the first 24 hours by women, and women only. Okay, so not to get politically correct, what do you mean, women and men? There are more than one gender. Maybe that you believe that there are more than one gender of individuals out there. Great. Well, if that's the case, then I'm sorry, but YouTube only recognizes two sexes, female and male. That's how they break down their analytics. If you decide to describe yourself as zippity doo as your sexuality, then great for you. But YouTube does not track that. They only track female and male, and then they break the analytics down by ages and interest. And there are some data when it breaks it down by those who consider themselves or watch more content that is by one religion over another. Maybe they watch things that are more Islamic, in nature. So they put them into more likely to watch things that have to do with this over Christianity, or Christianity over this. But they do not have a definite category for 77% of them are Christian white women. It doesn't break it down that much. But again, YouTube only recognizes two categories, female and male. Don't hate the person who's giving you the information. Hate the system itself. Number 9, organized crime, the mafia, is more popular with men over the age of 50 than any other demographic. And this is for any other demographic on earth, is what it would to make it clearer. Of the demographics for mafia, organized crime, the next highest one is men over the age of 65 is number 2. So they break it down between 50 and 65, and then 65 and over. But men are consume more organized crime, or content about the mafia than any other demographic. It doesn't break it down any more than that. If they are from the East Coast, middle of the United States, West Coast, Europe, it doesn't break it down any more than that. Just that the two largest groups basically are men over the age of 50, but they break it down in those two subgroups. 8. The top 3 reasons people say they follow and subscribe to true crime content are the following. They want to solve a puzzle, and they're interested, number 2, in psychology of a killer. And then the third reason people follow and subscribe to true crime content is to feel secure. What does that mean? They want to know how why the killer killed. the understanding the psychology behind it, or try to understand that. They want to help in putting the pieces of the puzzle together to who done it, and stuff like that. And when it comes to feeling secure, they want to know, okay, this is why this person did it, and these are the traits of the individual and why they did it. So maybe I can learn from it, so I feel more secure in my life and where I am, so I can have and know the signs of, look, this is going to be someone who's going to kill. But those are the top three reasons that people said that they why they subscribe and follow true crime content. Number 7, year over year, no one type of content made by amateurs is followed and supported more than true crime content. What does that mean? Year over year, since the internet and the sites, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, every platform out there where creators make content and publish it, there is no other genre out there that has seen more growth than in support from by people who make it. So I would be considered an amateur. I'm not a mainstream media outlet, but the content made by amateurs is supported by more people as a whole, because they want to know and get that personalized view of the true crime, as opposed to the mainstream media and the professionals. But if it's made by amateurs, that's even better, because they can feel like they can relate to them more. Number 6, India, the country, is the fastest growing market for true crime in the world. They generally watch true crime around marriage murders, murders of young women, and romance of the rich and murder. Those are the top 3 areas that they watch the most. And India is exploding, especially for YouTube and TikTok. Those two companies in general are really pushing to bring all as much of their content to the platform. So you're going to see YouTube, US and UK and stuff like that. But YouTube actually has their own India version of YouTube, and they're slowly integrating it to the world, because if they did it all at once, they would overload the system. I would that's my guess why they're doing it slowly. But TikTok has got their own, TikTok, India, and so do every other company, because it's a developing country, and they're finding more and more people are interested in, within the country, of watching people from within their own areas, and they're opening it up for monetization, and they're doing a lot of beta testing that'll eventually get moved out to other parts of the world. But up until this past 5 or 7 years, somewhere in there, it was an untapped market. But it is the fastest growing market by far of any other area of the world, India. 5, veterans of the U.S. military account for less than 1% of all YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok content creators in the genre of true crime. This is kind of hard to really narrow down, because this only accounts for those who have publicly said that they served in the United States military and have been honorably discharged. And yes, unfortunately, there are a large group of people in different genres out there besides true crime who say that they served in the military, and they are basically stolen valor, to say that they've served in the military when they never did, or they were at some point, maybe they never even made it through boot camp or whatever, and they got kicked out for some reason. But again, it's less than 1% of all those who have served in the military, are content creators in the true crime on those 3 different platforms, going only again by publicly announced. And not everyone who served in the military, in the U.S., has said, hey, I am a former Marine or I'm an Army vet or whatever. Maybe they just keep it to themselves. There might be a larger portion of them out there. But again, only by publicly known information. 4, from 2020 to 2022, fans of true crime worldwide spent $629 million to buy books, support podcasts, and give donations to content creators. In that 2-year span, $629 million went to support true crime creators in those content. And that in court, podcast, video formats, going to like VidCon, and other, hip hip hooray, like platform, gatherings. But $629 million in that 2-year span. 3, true crime obsessed podcast crossed the 200 million mark of downloads this past year. That is that is for the year 2024, not 2025. In 2024. But currently, as of the most recent, so that would be just around January of 2025, they are now close to 400 million downloads of their podcast. And they're not the largest. The True Crime Obsessed podcast is not the largest true crime podcast out there. They are one of them, but they're not the only one. 2, comedians Karen Gilgriff and Georgia Hardstark are the host of the popular true crime podcast, My Favorite Murder. Both of them individually have earned over $100 million doing their My Favorite Murder podcast. So yes, there is an awful lot of money when it comes to podcasting and to, in the content creation of, true crime, but it's a rarity. Of all YouTube channels that start off in any given year, it doesn't matter if it's 2025 or 2018 or whatever year is in between, you pick any year, less than 2% of anyone who ever starts a YouTube channel will be successful in the true crime genre. Less than 2%. Of the 2% that, of the rest of them who do survive, are able to make a living out of, doing content in the true crime, content with AdSense. That is how YouTube creators get paid, besides, selling merchandise or getting donations or anything else. The average YouTube creator with under 100,000 subscribers makes between $1,100 and $1,850 per year with AdSense if they are under 100,000 subscribers. Try living on that per year. Yeah. And the number one thing you may not know about true crime and those who create true crime content, all creators of true crime content seen a 60 to 65% drop in revenue earned on YouTube after what is commonly called the ad apocalypse that took place in March and April of 2020. While YouTube profited $36.1 billion that year, the year 2020, and in 2021, they profited $28.8 billion in 2021. The ad apocalypse still remains the largest 2-month event ever that YouTube has refused to address or fix, taking the stance you can and will be replaced. 19.8 million to 21.2 million creators vanished off of the YouTube platform in less than 56 days. This is an estimate only based on channels that went dark. And for those channels that went dark and have stopped posting content on YouTube, YouTube has the right to delete that content, the channel name, so you can't even search for them anymore. I'll give you two examples. Kite was a YouTube channel that started off at about the same time that I did. They made content that was pretty similar to what I was making as well back in 2020. They had around 26,000-ish, subscribers at that time. And they had about the same amount of content I did, about 500 videos. If you put Kite into the search engine on YouTube, you can't find their channel anymore. And they didn't delete it. But if you find one of the links to their back catalog, you can find their actual channel that way by clicking on a link to a video and then click on, hit the watch in repeat, or, you go down and then click on the name of the channel below and where it has like their subscriber total, and it will then show you all of their content. But they disappeared back during the ad apocalypse. Another channel that disappeared was My Deadly Romance. My Deadly Romance. They were a little bit larger of a channel than me. They had, at that point in 2020, they had approximately 1,100 videos. Most of them were kind of like a video podcast, mixture. So it was, the three individuals, Sarah, Ken, and David, the three of them talking about true crime. But they also had a video aspect of it. So it wasn't just a podcast. You would see them talking, then they would play a video, and then they would comment on what you just watched. My Deadly Romance. They're gone because after a 60% loss in revenue, the three of them could no longer survive. So they were here and then gone. Because, well, if someone just came up to you tomorrow at work and said, from here on out for the rest of your duration on this platform, we're going to do away with 60% of what you're earning per month. Good luck paying your mortgage or eating or doing anything, surviving at all. And it's not up to us. And then when you reach out and you try to contact someone within YouTube, they're basically like, we'll replace you tomorrow. We don't need you, and we're not going to fix this. And that was pretty much their thing. So at this point, I've talked long enough, and you might be wondering, what the hell is the ad apocalypse? Will, tell us. All right, in 2020, in March and April of 2020, the ad apocalypse started like this. There were some advertisers, mainly PepsiCo US. Pepsi, the soda company, realized that certain ads were running against their content. So YouTube it was like a giant free-for-all, the wild, wild west. Anything could run, against their content. And likewise, their advertising dollars were going and running against content that they didn't agree with. That, they didn't want, the Pepsi ad, showing up, on content for neo-Nazis. They didn't want to be associated with neo-Nazi content. Well, YouTube's system back then in March and April of 2020 didn't have, we found this content advertiser friendly, is what YouTube said from the content. There was nothing objectionable or against the rules against the content at that point. So it was any ad could run against it, be it for Pepsi or Frito-Lay or Aunt Jemima, pancake mix. Anything could run against in that, and that creator of the content would then get a small fraction of what's called a CPM. Those are clicks per milli, not million, per milli, and they would get one fraction of a 8 cents, 8/10 of a cent. Sorry. And They said, no, we don't want our content running against, content that we object to. And it wasn't, I'm using Nazi, content as the main point because that's what Pepsi did. And so did Ford Motor Company, Chevrolet, Hostess. They didn't want none of their content running on channels where they objected to the political or to the content itself and the message that it was sending. Now, YouTube has since fixed that. So now that there are 3 different categories, there is safe for all advertisers. There is, a medium that is somewhat, controversial content. And then there is the third category, which is not friendly for AdSense, open market. So only those who say, we don't care who, where this our ads show up, run it there. And they get paid a hell of a lot. As you go down from first to third, there's a hell of a lot of a difference in how much one individual will earn with those ads running on their content. To put it to a point blank, it took me 4 years to make $100 on content where I was in group 3. Yeah. But that was the ad apocalypse. And YouTube's idea of fixing it was just saying, we're just not going to allow anything on that kind of content, and we're going to age block it and basically shadow ban it completely from the platform. And then they got their asses sued, and they settled out of court without admitting wrong. But those creators eventually walked away. But that content is still out there to this day. How many of the 15 did you know? I knew all 15, obviously, but in this group of 15. But how many of them did you know? Did you know 6, 9, 12? Let me know. Serial Killer Corner is next. You will die to get away. News from around the world regarding investigations into serial killings. Desert killer David Leonard Wood is set to be executed on March 13th, 2025 for the murder of 10 women and girls. David Leonard Wood. After 4 decades of appeals, time has finally run out for Mr. Woods. The bodies of Desiree Wheatley, age 14, Rosa Marie Casio, 24, Ivy Susanna Williams, 23, Karen Baker, 20, Angelica, I am not sure how you pronounce that last name, age 17, and Dawn Marie Smith, 14, were found in the desert northeast of El Paso, Texas. Some had been stabbed or strangled to death, and some had been hard-r'd. Can't say the word for YouTube reasons because they will demonetize my content. The 2 girls and a woman, Marjorie Knox, 14, and Cheryl Velasquez de Muscus, 19, and Melissa Alanis, who would occur in 13, a week after she went missing, were never found. And David Wood confessed to the murders, yet even as of recently as 2023, is refusing to tell authorities what he did with their bodies. David Woods is going to be executed on March 13th in the state of Texas. If you wish to read more about this, there is a link there to the El Paso Times about David Woods. And the state of Texas don't mess around. But 4 decades of appeals. That's how long it took for the court system. He would have been executed approximately 3 years ago, but a lot of the appeals process, for him was delayed because of the COVID shutdowns and the courts shut down. So it created a massive backlog, but they're getting through all that backlog of appeals to the state Supreme Courts and to the United States Supreme Court. And in this, the great state of Texas, you mess around, you're going to find out exactly in the state of Texas what's going to happen. Entertainment news stories from around Hollywood, music, film, literature, and more, featuring moments celebrities wish had never happened. These are the missteps and controversies they'd rather the world forget, but we're here to bring them to light for everyone to see and enjoy. Kefi D, aka Dwayne Davis, that is the one on the right, as you see. That is Tupac Shakur on the left. Granted an interview recently that was filled with lies and falsehoods. He is clearly trying to get false information out there before his trial starts for his part in the Tupac Shakur murder. I've included a link here to a shorter version to what the interview was about, not the crime and what he's charged with, because the People magazine article only goes into his interview, which is the reason why I'm highlighting this, not the actual crime. We know that he supplied the guns that killed Tupac Shakur, so there's no denying that part, and he's admitted it in the past that he was the one that supplied the gun. All right, real or fake news. Your task is to identify the real news story. I will present 3 stories, but only one is true. Choose either A, B, or C to determine which one is the real story. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the breakfast edition of Fake or Real News. Story A. An actual Cheeto pulled out of a bag of Cheetos was saved and put up for auction. That's not the strange part. The Cheeto looked like a Pokemon and sold for $87,840. The seller said he almost ate it for breakfast before he noticed what it looked like. Is this the real story or is this the fake story? You only have to tell me which one of these 3 is the real story. 2 of them are fake and 1 is real. Did a Cheeto that looked like a Pokemon sell for $87,840, or is that a fake story? Story number 2, story B. A grilled egg, butter, ham, and Swiss sandwich with a bite taken out of it, made by an Irish chap for breakfast, will instead be blasted off into outer space after the man from Dublin, Ireland, was able to raise the 2.45 million pounds to send it into space. Is this the real story or is this one of the fake stories? Story A, B so far, and here is story C. Burger King US will start selling the chicken Italian breakfast burrito again in 2026 after its limited run in 2001. The Italian breakfast burrito is filled with chicken, scrambled eggs, hash brown, melted mozzarella cheese, diced onions and peppers, and marinara sauce. All right. Again, only one of these 3 stories is real. Is it story A, B, or C? One of them is real. I'll give you a few minutes to think about each one. Each one of these stories has been presented and shared at least 100,000 times on the internet in the past 7 days and has received a minimum of 10,000 likes or upvotes. And upvotes only come from Reddit. So these are not all Reddit stories. I don't know where that confusion came from in the past, but they're not. I wish they were because I could ignore them. Can you determine which one is the real story? Story A, B, or C? Good morning, The Finn. Glad you could be here with us this morning. If there's anybody else I missed, I am truly sorry, but welcome to this morning's Page 2 News. Is it story A, B, or C? One of them is the real story and the other two are fake. Which one is real? Smoke them if you got them. All right, the real story this week is story A. A Cheeto sold for over $87,000. Ladies and gentlemen, with what's called a buyer's premium, the total cost for this Cheeto is $91,540 for a Cheeto that looks like a Charizard. That is a character from the Pokemon game. A Cheeto. Yes. And I verified this story with, like every other story, with 3 different sources. That not only the auction house, the story from the Associated Press, and I've also verified it because it showed up on Fox News. Because, and I'm not joking, I wish I was, on Fox News, they called it woke stupidity, the Cheeto story. But not sure how that connection is real, but that's what they keep on saying. Anyways, the Charizard Cheeto sold for over $91,000 with the buyer's premium. The other 2 stories are fake. The one about Burger King's burrito, breakfast burrito, is actually in Italy. Burger King originally introduced a burger that was kind of like a melt, I guess you could call it. It was a chicken breast with all those items on it. The story about the man from Dublin, Ireland, sending a grilled cheese, an egg sandwich into outer space was kind of, true, but it had nothing to do with the sandwich. The man wanted to buy a sub sandwich, and he started a Kickstarter to send a sub sandwich into outer space. It never happened, but Quiznos then took that story and ran with it, as an advertisement campaign in America, that their subs were out of this world. But that was the inspiration for theirs. But he never actually did this thing. But he did start a Kickstarter. I think he earned like got $5 total. Armless self-promotion. I have no affiliate links to promote and no products to sell you under false pretenses. If you enjoy the content, consider making a donation to help support this work. Again, this is completely optional. It's up to you. You can make a donation to keep this channel and its content going forward. Questions that I was asked this past week. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? I would change my ability to say no to others. That was written by Anonymous. That's what it says. It's anonymous. My answer to the question is, interesting question, one I don't think that I've ever given any real thought about. If I could change anything, I guess it would be to have taken better care of myself in my teens and early 20s. But I've never really thought about the story about one thing. I happen to like who I am, and so do most people who meet me. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people on the internet who have never met me who absolutely hate me just because of I'm not their favorite person. Next question that was asked this past week is more of a comment than anything else. In reply to a question, should inmates sentenced to death be allowed to take college courses? And this person, replied in the comment section. What are they going to do with the degree? That was posted by Do Not Even Go. And then I cut the rest of theirs off because I don't think that they want, a million people, spamming them. But the answer is idle hands are the tools of the devil. There's a lot of statistics out there that say an inmate that is busy in prison is less likely to commit crimes behind the prison walls. And that goes even for a condemned inmate. That you give them something to do besides just pump iron all day long, and think of ways to get back at other inmates. They're less likely to be violent. Even those who are extremely violent and are in places like Pelican Bay, where they spend 23 hours a day in solitary confinement, even those inmates, if you give them something to do, in their cells, they're less likely to be disruptive, within the prison system itself. If you have a question that you would like to see answered, you can ask it either in the comment section here, or if you're watching this after the live stream, you can ask it then. I go through each and every week's worth of streams, and I look to see if there's a question that has been asked, or if somebody else has answered it. And yes, I know you may have asked a question in the last couple of weeks, but somebody may have answered the question for you in the comment section, during the live stream. So I didn't answer. I don't ask, post them, because they're like, hey, they're asking it directly to me and nobody answers the question. I didn't pick it out. Tomorrow night's live stream of trivia is BTK. Dennis Rader is the subject matter for tomorrow night's live stream of trivia. Again, it's at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 o'clock Mountain, 7 o'clock in Eastern Time. 20 questions about Dennis Rader and Dennis Rader's crimes. BTK, bind, torture, kill, is tomorrow night's trivia subject matter. Thank you again for watching Page 2 News. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help the algorithm suggest the content to more viewers, which in turn makes the entire experience more enjoyable for everyone. And that's it. That is Page 2. I know the subject matter about true crime and true crime creators is different from my normal, not focusing a spotlight on actual crimes or criminals. But I mean, like I said, I found it interesting, and I hope you did as well. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And leave a comment. Tell me just how much I suck as a creator and how much you're never going to come back and you're unsubscribing because you've never been a subscriber. All the above. Please leave it in the comment section. Well, you asked who would give Jodi Arias monies. She sells her artwork. I was made aware of that, the Finn, and thank you. But I mean, she's got to be successful at it, right? Because she's definitely making quite a bit of money, to be able to buy commissary, 80 some bucks worth of commissary, a month. And that's not, from what I'm told, I mean, those were only 2 days, that she actually purchased commissary, that I got records. She filed the commissary request on a Friday. She probably got it on Monday. I'm not exactly sure how that prison in Arizona works. But yeah, she's selling her artwork. Somehow somebody's got to be able to put the money on her inmate account. If it's her artwork, then she's got to ship it out, and somebody else has got to put the money on the account, right? Does she have a go-between? Somebody who is facilitating that on the outside to, let other people know about her artwork? Or is she doing it all herself through pen pals and stuff like that? Don't forget to change your clocks forward an hour. U.S. daylight savings time, except for Arizona and Hawaii. I know, right? That tricked me up the last time I was in Arizona, Gala. And Hawaii, the only time I was ever there was on the Air Force Base, and it was just a touch and go, pretty much a little refueling stop. One of these days I'll make it back there. My friends were just there last week in Honolulu. They go every year though. It's kind of like they rent an Airbnb there, and then they go golf and enjoy the warmer climate while the rest of us are here or freezing our butts off. A friend, she did time with who runs her website. Okay. And good morning, Broken Justice. I hope you had a terrific week. I'm glad you could be here this morning with us. Yeah, and for anybody who wonders, about that, how she can make money from selling her artwork, it would not violate federal law, which is called it's technically called the Son of Sam law, but it's not really called the Son of Sam law. It actually has no real name. It's just a legal reference number. That's it. It doesn't have a name, but people call it the Son of Sam law. Under the Son of Sam law, she wouldn't be violating the actual profiting from her actual crimes, because if she's making artwork and selling it, that would be different. You'd be, yeah, her notoriety of who she is the reason why people are buying the work. Just like John Wayne Gacy and all the clown paintings and everything else that he made, he wasn't profiting directly from the crime itself. Like, here is memorabilia from all my victims. That would be profiting from it. Or here is part of the story about this individual and how I killed him. That'd be profiting from the actual crime. Their notoriety is completely different. And when it comes to the actual law itself, a lot of legislators have cut the teeth right out of the law over the years. So there's no real backbone to the Son of Sam law itself. I'm sure she gets a cut because the art isn't about her crime. She can get away with making money from prison. Yeah, it's true. Like I was just explaining the Finn. I hope I did a better explanation than that. But that's the gist of it. It's not a violation of the Son of Sam law. Again, not that there's any teeth to the law at all anymore. I mean, when as soon as the government found out that there was a way to profit themselves from other people's crimes, they have. Hey, we'll give you 60 minutes access to Charles Cullen, the angel of death, the killer nurse. The prison system themselves profited from 60 minutes coming in and having unfettered access to and doing their interviews with them. How did 60 minutes get that? Well, they charged them what's called a media like an interview fee. They have another name for it, but it's escaping me right now. But basically, a media interview. You want to do an interview with Charles Cullen? You pay us X amount of dollars. They say it's for extra security and setting up and use of the facilities. It's how they get away with it. But then they make money off it. Well, is there anybody else on death row that you want to interview? You do? Great. We have another way for you to do that. Here, give us a bunch of money and we'll set that up for you. How about the items that have been confiscated from an inmate before, after they've been executed or around the time that they're executed, like, Mr. Woods. Maybe he's got personal items in his cell. How do those things make it out into the memorabilia market? Oh my gosh, it must be that they're corrupt, guards. No, the prison system takes them. They take them and then they give other items to their remaining family and say, here you go. And then that stuff filters off through another channel, and then it gets sold and the prison makes money. I'm not joking. I wish I was. He had no food in his stomach. Nuts was hydrated. Oh, must be talking something else. It's going to snow where you are today, Broken Justice. I'm sorry. Today it's going to be 58 degrees where I am. And I missed the context here. We have but yeah, it's back to what I was saying though. When the prison system figured out that there was a way to make money off of death row or high profile cases, they do. And hey, you know what? We need the legislators to take this part away, or make sure there's no teeth to the enforcement of the Son of Sam law, so we can make money off it. They did, and the states make money on it, and then they say we're putting it back into security, or we're using it for facility updates. Yeah, they make money off it just like everybody else. So, of course, they wanted to do away with the enforcement of it. Cement Shoes doesn't like you anymore. I don't think that Cement Shoes doesn't like you. Oh, we were talking about Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman and Alzheimer's. Damn, I watched one of the videos of him before. It's obviously, I think it was a couple months before his death. He didn't look anything like, Gene Hackman anymore. Apparently he was very popular and had been seen in and around his, community. He would either ride a bike, a lot, and then he stopped riding a bike, and then his wife would drive him into town to get coffee and other things. Does it cost millions to keep an inmate on death row? Oh, heck yeah, the Finn. The cost associated with keeping an inmate on death row and the appeals process, they don't break it down. At least not. I have never seen a really good source for the breakdown. But let's just use a case and say that the individual has been in prison on death row for 30 years, which is about the average, actually, in America, 30 years. For those states that actively use the death penalty, we're talking, a 30-year appeals process where they're going to have a court-appointed attorney, and everything else, and the food, the security, medical, everything that the inmate gets during that 30-year period. We're talking millions and millions of dollars to keep that individual on death row for 30 years while they work through their appeals process. And for the case of Mr. Woods, who is about to be executed this coming week, he fought for 4 decades, his actual conviction, 4 decades on death row. Now, the cost when it comes to keeping an inmate behind bars, say they've been, given natural life with no chance of parole. Natural life means you're just going to be here indefinitely until you die, because there is no chance of parole. You will die here. We're just not going to put a needle in your arm or, hang you from a rope. But you're going to live out your life in prison forever. And those inmates, it costs them, a lot less, over a span of like 30 years, in general population. But then you have your inmates who are in protective custody. Those inmates cost, just a tiny bit less than the death row, those who are in protective custody. If you're in protective custody and you are given a sentence of natural life with no chance of parole, so you have your general population cost, then you have a slightly higher cost for protective custody, then you have your death row, and then and those who are going to be on death row for decades, and that's about the max. And that goes for state and for federal level in the United States. Imagine having the pendulum of death hanging over your head every day. Nope, don't want to. They said mouse, that she was from coming into contact with mouse droppings. It costs an awful lot of money, though, to keep someone in prison forever. And the longer the appeals process, more costs. And I live and reside in Washington State, and we no longer have the death penalty. Everyone who was on death row up until a couple of years ago, when the governor abolished and signed the abolishment of the death penalty in the state, and they commuted every one of those death row inmates who were given an actual death sentence. They commuted theirs to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Some of those inmates were in for 25, 30 years, approximately on death row while their appeals. And of course, all their appeals were dropped for the most part. There are some who are still appealing their actual convictions, but they've been converted to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So we spent the hundreds of millions of dollars for all these inmates, and then death row and all the guards and everything else, and taking care of them, and then we converted them to general population. I think what I read in the paper was there were 4 inmates total who were on death row in this state when that law went into effect, and they converted them all to natural life without the possibility of parole. 4 inmates were moved to protective custody because they were either former law enforcement or they had snitched on another group or individual, where it basically be a death sentence if they've got put in general population. Here at Cost of Family, not our state, we had to pay for death row, and everything else in prison did not pay for a thing. It wiped us out financially. You'd be surprised. They don't provide anything. That would suck. So aren't they doing death by firing squad because of lack of drugs in MEEP in some states? There have been 3 states total that have brought back the death by firing squad. Those states are the following. Now, Utah never got away with the firing squad. It was one of the options they always have had. But the other 3 states are Utah, Texas, and I believe Oklahoma or Nebraska. It's one of the 2 next to Texas that brought back the firing squad because they can't get the phenobarbital which is part of the concoction that is used to actually execute an inmate by lethal injection. And when a lot of the states moved to lethal injections, they got rid of their backups, for executions. They got rid of the gas chamber. They got rid of the electric chair or the gallows, or whatever it might have been that they had originally as a backup. So an example in the state of Idaho, and for good old Chad Daybell, in the state of Idaho, there you have the options. The state has the options that the inmate does not get to choose in the state of Idaho how they are executed. So sucks to be you, Chad Daybell. But in the state of Idaho, it's firing squad, electric chair, and lethal injection in the state of Idaho. Well, is how they will execute an inmate. Now, they haven't executed an inmate in the state of Idaho in quite some time, but the last person that was executed by firing squad was in the state of Utah. Oh, is Woods going to be killed by firing squad? No, Meep. He is going to go to the electric chair. In the state of Texas, if the state of Texas, and I joke about this, but I mean, there's actually some evidence to this, but I joke about it. If the state of Texas could have, electric bleachers where they could electrocute, a dozen inmates at once, they would. The only thing that is stopping them is the cruel and unusual punishment clause, of the Constitution. That's the only thing that is stopping the state of Texas from doing mass executions by an electric chair. If they have to make 12 electric chairs and line them up and then send current through all 12 of them to electrocute them at the same time, they would. I'm not joking, and it's not a dig on the state of Texas. It's that they have always been enforced the death penalty, and even during the moratorium on the death penalty in the 1970s, the state of Texas was in front. They were right in line, number one, to fight the U.S. government, to lift the moratorium on the death penalty. Right there, number one, you will not stop us from, step over on our shoes, because they looked at it as the federal government was putting, too much interference within their state. Number one, make sure that they, to stop it, to get the death penalty back. I would want protective custody. The protective custody only goes so far, Francie. Only so far. Don't forget, Jeffrey Dahmer was not in general population. He was in protective custody. But because of a series of errors, we have to use that with in quotes, errors, a general population inmate got into the same area where Jeffrey Dahmer was and then beat him to death in prison. Jeffrey was in protective custody. The other guy was in, general population. So just because you're in protective custody doesn't mean that you're safe. There have been quite a few, inmates who've been in, protective custody that have been murdered, extorted by general population inmates. It happens a lot. The extortion racket, paying for protection, I don't have any proof of it, but you can bet your last dollar, I've been looking for it. But I'm almost certain that somehow Josh Duggar is paying for protection in prison. Somehow he is either buying commissary and giving it to someone to protect him, or somebody else, he's either, that, or he's transferring money from his inmate account to another inmate's account to protect him. Because that little Oompa Loompa, pervert is not doing, too well by himself. And, even in Seagoville, penitentiary, with other inmates who are all like him. You can bet your last dollar on that. I can't prove it, not at this point though, but I've been looking for it. I've been digging into it. Anyone who's been an inmate who served anywhere near the same housing block or in the same housing block as Josh, I'm trying to find it. And there's definitely information out there that he's doing things, for other inmates, being he got caught smuggling a cell phone back from the visitation room back into the housing unit. Dumbass. He dropped it. He was supposed to keep it, quenched between his butt cheeks, his prison wallet, and he dropped it, and that's how they caught him. But he was doing that on, somebody else told him to do that. So there's somebody putting pressure on Josh, and I'm sure every day of his life in prison is miserable, and I hope it gets worse, because he deserves worse. Because remember, just because he got caught with, content, of minor children's and all that shit, that he did get convicted of, he was never prosecuted for what he did to his sisters and to their friends and the babysitter. All of those crimes are never been charged, and he's never been convicted of. And he deserves to be convicted of them, or at least punished for them. And that's a lifetime in a special room in hell, where he's going to burn for it after this life, in my view. Let me make sure I put that in there. South Carolina inmates Brad Sigmund, sentenced to death in 2001 for killing his girlfriend's parents with a baseball bat. He was executed Friday. That's true, Gayla. I covered Brad's. I don't know if I released it as a video here or if it was on Patreon. But yes, you are absolutely correct. And at the end, he just said, I'm done. I'm ready to go. I'll let my attorney speak for me. They executed him by firing squad, which was his choice of method. So he got his actual choice, Gala. Also, the corrections officers have the monopoly on drugs and cell phones coming in our system. It's so corrupt. I'm sorry. Bad company until the day I die. Francie, I don't want protected custody. I look at it this way. And I have definitely been asked this question in the past. If I've ever been so upset that I would kill someone, and besides it being a morally and ethically wrong thing to do, there are certain individuals out there that I've not personally been so upset with that I would want to commit the crime myself. But I just that hellfire and damnation thing just doesn't sound fun to me. You know, so they're that, and I don't want to go anywhere where getting poked in the ass is a normal thing. So I'm not going to be committing any murders. But I've been definitely asked a question before. Never want to go. Don't send me to prison. But I'll be damned if I would do anything and everything to protect my kids though. And I think every parent out there would. If push came to shove and you found out that someone had done something to one of your children, they say hell knows no fury like a pissed off mama bear. You piss off this daddy bear. This daddy bear will take any course I could to protect my kids. No one's worth spending the rest of my life in a cement box. You believe in karma? Yeah. Put a clipboard in your pants. Yes. Back to Broken Justice's comment about the prison system being corrupt. Yes, there is a vast majority of the prison systems across this nation that are corrupt, and they have done a lot of work to try to remove the corruption and smuggling of goods into the prisons by guards. But sometimes it's not just about the money that they make. They The inmates themselves may hold power or control over family members or their safety on the outside. Do it, or your wife or your children or somebody you love, threats like that. We know how to get to them. This is where you live. This is where your family is. And I know quite a few people who are in the and work in the Department of Corrections, and shit like that does happen. But please, for the love of God, do not associate that and think that every person who works in corrections is crooked. A vast majority of them are just trying to do a job that is horrific in nature that you or I would never want to do. We would never want to be a guard or a corrections officer in the system. There are a lot of good people out there, in that field, and would never think about taking a bribe or smuggling anything in for an inmate. They would much rather just walk away from their profession before they would ever do anything like that at all. So, yes, the corruption is out there across this nation, but it's a small, small portion of the entire thing. And yeah, we may have antidotes, to say, look, here's this person, this situation that's connected to me, and this is how corrupt it is. True. And when you find that, you got to report it. Everybody has to report it. There has to be, a way, that you say, look, if it's happening to me, it's going to be happening to other families too. There's got to be, these check marks, like, well, if it's not me today, it's somebody else tomorrow. The nurse came in. Cement shoes. Are you okay? Did I miss something? No, it's true, Galen. I know up here in Washington State, I know people everything from Walla Walla Corrections, prison, to Coyote Ridge, which is medium, to down to my county, lockup, and they're great people, and they would never do, or think about taking, or doing anything wrong. Oh, I'm sorry, Cement Shoes. You've been in the hospital. I wasn't aware of that, and I'm truly sorry. And I really hope you get better. I know you've been ill for a while, but I didn't know you were in the hospital itself. I hope that you get better. Everybody, say a prayer for Cement Shoes if you believe it or not, or just send, Cement Shoes, positive thoughts, even if you don't believe, in a higher power. We're all pulling for you, bud. No, I did not. I'm sorry, Cement Shoes. You can either post it again, or I will definitely see it after this. What today after this live stream, I go through to see if there's any questions that have been asked, for next week's, stream. Are there any luxury prison lockups, Francie, in the federal system? And there may be what people would call, um, country club esque prisons for white collar crimes. Where they have everything from, basically it's like a spa. Winville chicken coop murders. Cement Shoes has his own page in here in my little black book. Thank you, Cement Shoes. Murders. Got it. Martha Stewart was in one. Yeah, there've been some high profile inmates who've been sent to prison, federally wise. I'm sure there are nicer state prisons somewhere. If you're going to do prison time, I would probably want to go to some place like, Maine or Vermont, as opposed to California, where, you have like San Quentin or something like that. I'm sure there's differences overall. But as far as I know, I don't think inmates get to pick where they go once they get into the system. It's a case from the 20s that sounds like a horror movie. I will definitely look into it, Cement Shoes. But it's a crazy country, that we have. And somebody, I don't remember who posted it, but somebody had said that for-profit prisons shouldn't exist. For-profit prison systems underneath Biden. Biden had signed into law that all federal or state prisons that receive federal money could not go to for-profit prison systems, and they were going away and closing down the for-profit prisons. Well, that has been reversed, as they say. And someone, like you were playing a game of Uno, someone laid the reverse card and said, no, we're not only going to keep the for-profit prison systems because, well, one reason or another, you could figure that out for yourself why they would want to do that, but we're also going to open up mass detention centers outside of the U.S. soil where laws do not apply. I'm not making that up. You can look it up yourself. watched a documentary about the Speedway murders. 4 teens kidnapped from a burger place and executed. Happened in '78. Never solved. Interesting. Will. Speedways, Indiana. Thank you, the Finn. The Finn double N's. Speedway murders, Indiana. Send Dizzy to Gaza. How would you ever get out? How would you ever get out of prison? Well, so do the super rich go to nicer prisons? Well, they can definitely pay to be sent to a nicer prison. It all depends upon their crimes. I mean, if Martha Stewart, she definitely went to a nice, cushy, country club-esque, prison. But if she had been a murderer, maybe she did, man. I don't know. Martha Stewart, from what I understand from her business side of it, she's a ruthless individual when it comes to business, so maybe she did commit murder. I don't know. She was never convicted of it, though. But now she spends her time smoking weed with, Snoop Dogg. But if she would have committed murder, she never would have went to the cushy country club esque one that she went to. They would have sent her to maybe where she had to actually suffer a little bit, because they didn't have 1,000 different things for her. They only had 700. There's a photograph of the gas chamber. One of the better series you've done. Is it a painting or a drawing? Would love to see it. See the artwork. If you did artwork, Cement Shoes, I'd love to see it. That was a photograph of the gas changer. I read that wrong. Oh, photography. I loved photography when I was younger, but that was back in the old days where you had a load of roll of film on and advance it, and then produce it in a dark room. Yeah, it was back in there, and we barely had electricity. Mendez documentary series. I am so sick of. I'm sorry, Kitty Q, but you have. I can't express this enough to you and everybody. How many damn days a week, in how many different articles I get absolutely flooded with about the Mendez brothers and their appeals and everything else going on with them. It's actually kind of sickening, and I have no idea why the world is so fixated on these two idiots. I've seen some good documentaries done about them, but I mean, it's amazing. I mean, last week I probably got 80 or 90 somewhere in there, different articles that were sent to me about the Mendez brothers and interviews and are they going to get their appeals and what's going to go on, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, just leave it alone. One of the Netflix better series was the Mendez. One of the ones that I like that is on Netflix. I've only Netflix. You have to understand, I don't watch a lot of television, especially like live television. But whenever I do go on the Netflix, I always go to the documentary section, And I really like the death row stories. You know, I find it interesting. That's just me though. The Wineville chicken coop murders. I'm definitely going to look into that meat. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap up this morning's page two news. I want to thank everyone again for being here this morning for page two news. I know it was a little bit different. If you give it a thumbs up if you liked it, give it a thumbs down if you don't. Leave a comment telling me, what you thought of it. Either way. But again, tomorrow night's trivia is at the same time. If you don't get notifications, which I hope you do, but if you don't, make a sticky note, put it next to the device you watch, items on, this channel on. But it's at, tomorrow night, same time. Um, you know, um, and I hope that everyone is able to, pop in and watch tomorrow night. Again, it's on BTK, the Bind, Torture, Kill, Dennis Rader, and his crimes. That is tomorrow night's trivia subject. 20 questions, multiple choice, all displayed on screen. And I hope everyone, if I don't see you tomorrow for trivia, I hope you have a terrific week ahead. And in the meantime, everyone, you stay safe out there. Bye. Smith shoes, that's funny. You'll find Jimmy Hoffa before the Mendez brothers go free.